Hello again. Thanks for coming to see Beneath the Surface Day 3. So this is our slide deck part B that we have, and we've already done an activity in the classroom where students were assigned a type of bear, and we had to collect food and make sure that we understood the amount of food required for our bears to live. So it was a fun game, and after we determined the amount of food each bear got, we understood that some bears did not survive. So why didn't every bear survive? Sometimes there weren't enough resources, sometimes there were injuries, sometimes humans had some sort of an effect, and sometimes there were natural disasters. So something biotic that decreased our bear population was the lack of food. There wasn't enough food, so the bears couldn't live, or maybe humans were hunting the bears. An abiotic factor that might have decreased the bear population in our game was that there were natural disasters, or there was not enough water, or the water was polluted, or there was some sort of illness. All right, so you can take a quick break as you are watching this from home, and you can look for the bat. I'm not actually going to do 4 minutes for this video, so if you want to pause, you can, and look for your bat. And that's where our bat was. All right, so continuing on with our lesson and thinking about all the things that happened to our bears and kept them from growing their populations, we can think about rabbits in the field. Oopsie daisy, hold on, sorry. So female cottontail rabbits, Silvolagus floridanus, are especially fertile. They're able to give birth to 7 litters per year, and while this would suggest areas with cottontail rabbits would be completely overrun by them, this isn't actually the case. So we're going to think about how that could be. What could be the reason that we aren't completely overrun by these rabbits? All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to watch a video on limiting factors. So if you're in the classroom, you're going to be writing on your whiteboards. Otherwise, you can be writing on scratch paper or maybe on your notes. So I'm going to do my best here to allow the video to run and allow the my notes video to continue. So I'm hoping that the sound works. If not, I've already put the link for this video in your Schoology. So you're going to lose my voice, hopefully, and then listen to the video.
Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about limiting factors. Any abiotic factor or biotic factor that restricts the number or reproduction of organisms, animals, amount of competition, Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about limiting factors. Any abiotic factor or biotic factor that restricts the number or reproduction of organisms in an ecosystem is called a limiting factor. Take this ecosystem found in the fishbowl. The limiting factors could be the size of the bowl, the amount of water, or the temperature, and any of these can limit the number of fish that can survive in the fishbowl. Limiting factors can be dependent limiting factors and independent limiting factors. Dependent limiting factors depend on the number of organisms. For example, the amount of food available for each organism depends on the number of organisms in this ecosystem. And independent limiting factors does not depend on the number of organisms. For example, the amount of rainfall does not depend on the number of organisms. You also have density-dependent limiting factors, and it is a limiting factor that depends on population size. For example, these could include competition, predation, parasitism, and disease. Let's look at a list of abiotic limiting factors. This could include sunlight, climate, temperature, water, space, soil chemistry, fire, and natural disasters. And a list of biotic limiting factors include the number of plants, number of animals, amount of competition, number of decomposers, number of parasites, and disease-causing agents. So there we go, limiting factors, biotic and abiotic factors that limit the size, number, and reproduction of organisms in an ecosystem. Thanks for watching, and Moo Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day.
All right, so if all went well, you were able to listen to that video, hear the sound as it played. If not, please go into Schoology and click on the link so that you can go through that video. So now you're going to consider, what is a limiting factor? So a limiting factor is any factor that's going to reduce a population's ability to grow and reproduce. Okay, 2 examples of limiting factors might be the amount of food available, the amount of rainfall, space for those organisms to continue to grow, soil, competition, even a natural disaster or a climate change, or the amount of sunlight. So we have lots of biotic and abiotic factors that are possibly limiting or making a population not able to expand. So if we want to think about this fishbowl, what is one abiotic limiting factor for the fish in this fishbowl? Abiotic means it's not a living thing. So certainly if there's not enough water in there, that would be an abiotic factor that would limit the amount of fish that could live there. The size of the bowl at all has an effect. The temperature, some fish can only live within a certain temperature range. And even for abiotic factors, we could have things like a change in pH or something that could affect the amount of fish that can grow. That could be a limiting factor. So if we want to think about biotic limiting factors, oops, did I say food for abiotic? Food is not an abiotic limiting factor. I hope I didn't say that. Food is a biotic limiting factor. And so we want to think about other biotic limiting factors could be predation. If you have a particularly hungry bigger fish, that's going to prey on smaller fish or something like that. That could have an effect as well. So we have abiotic and biotic factors. Again, if I said food just a moment ago on our abiotic slide, my apologies. A food situation is not abiotic. Food is biotic. All right, are limiting factors a bad thing? Why or why not? Well, we can think back about our cottontails, our little rabbits that we're growing. Probably it's a good thing that we had limiting factors there. So what is a limiting factor again? Limiting factors are conditions of an environment that limit the growth of a species. And they can be biotic or abiotic factors that prevent the continuous growth of a population. Okay, so some examples again of our abiotic limiting factors. First, we have to remember that limiting factor is something that controls the growth of a population in an ecosystem. So examples of abiotic or non-living factors that could be limiting, that could be oxygen or space or sunlight or water. Those are all abiotic. Examples of biotic limiting factors would be things like predators, hunting, disease, or lack of food even, right? Because food is biotic. So, all right. So just thinking about our ecosystems and other things that affect our ecosystems, if we were to take a look at the Earth from space in 200 years, it probably is going to look a little different from how it looks right now. You already know that we've had some shifting of our continental plates and continental drift. Maybe 200 years wouldn't be enough to see a big change, but we will see some other things as well because climate will be continuing to change, and also the population of humans has a big effect on the look of our land surfaces and water surfaces. All right, so if we look at these 2 different pictures, these are the same location. What do we notice? I'll let you look for a moment. In the picture on the left, we can see that there is probably more vegetation. Over here on the right, we have a lot of open dirt. That's our before picture. This is our after picture. A lot of dirt, and that is probably an effect of humans. What could have caused it? Well, maybe if these were forests that people wanted to take trees down and collect foresting, that could make a big effect. Or maybe because we had development, roads, things like that, or maybe we dammed up a river or something, and maybe the river broke, that dam broke, and so we could have washed out a whole area of housing. So lots of things can make big changes, but you'll admit that that's a big change from before to after. All right, so the environment would be different over here now because if you have little bunnies and deer and things that used to live and run around inside the protection of trees, now they can't do that, right? So that's one thing. We aren't going to have the same kind of insects and pollinators because there aren't things to attract them. Here's another example. In 1999, we had an area that looked like this. In 2015, we had an area that looks like this. So this time, if you notice the before and after pictures, you may feel like the after picture, the more recent picture, has more biodiversity, which we say is always a great thing. So we call this rewilding. So if we have made an effort to rewild an area, we are trying to increase the biodiversity of that area. If we want to define rewilding, that is that term means that we want to restore an area of land to its natural state, maybe by introducing or reintroducing species of plants and animals. All right, so this ecosystem has changed. Other than more trees, what other changes may have occurred? Well, you might guess that there are more animals living around here. Perhaps the oxygen concentration right in this general area is higher if we have a greater amount of photosynthesis or something. It is likely cooler because a lot of times in wooded areas like this, the temperature is lower than in more open spaces. All right, so during class, we're going to try to do a Kahoot. So if you are watching from home, you're probably not going to be able to do that. But we'll go ahead and stop here. And I thank you again for watching.